Hey guys, I'm Garry Tan. I'm a co-founder at Posterous.com. We're that simple place to post everything online using email. And you just email post@posterous.com, attach photos, music, video, files, anything, and we'll reply with your new blog. And you can use that to post your Twitter, your Facebook, your existing blog to your Flickr, anywhere where you have an existing community. We want to make it way easier for you to post than ever before. And we launched in June of 2008. We were a part of the summer of 2008 Y Combinator batch out in Boston, the last batch in Boston. And since then, we raised an angel round of about $700,000 in October of '08. And now we're 6 guys out in North Beach in San Francisco. Yeah, absolutely. So it's basically, we've actually dropped the numbers into Excel, and it's actually been growing more or less polynomially or exponentially, depending on what model you want to use. I guess it really does start right when we first started. It really was just us and our friends. We never really had a beta period. A lot of sites do, get a lot of traction out of that, but we did the exact opposite. We just got something up that just worked for ourselves, and then we got our girlfriends and friends to use it, and then we applied for a Y Combinator, and we got in because we had a demo that was really straightforward. It's funny because the demo hasn't changed very much since even the original one, where we were sitting down with Paul Graham and Jessica and all the other guys at YC. And so we, right off the bat, had something that was very simple, but something that we thought was powerful, and YC agreed. So we did get in, moved out to Boston, and immediately we wanted to get our software into the hands of our users as quickly as possible. So we were actually the first group to launch out of that batch, and we launched on TechCrunch. And Michael Arrington tried it and used it, and he uses it today, and we feel completely honored by that. And he wrote the first review, and that first weekend we got 10,000 new users. And that's kind of where the story, is a little different from the typical story. Like I read so much that people launch on TechCrunch, and then where does the traffic go? And, like, there's a TechCrunch bump. If you look at our graph, it just the TechCrunch bump never actually happened. It just kind of kept going from there. So 10,000. Next weekend we had 20,000, 30,000. Basically, by the end of Y Combinator, we had tripled since our launch. And I actually literally, beyond just saying, maybe the product spoke to people, we've gone back and talked about it a lot. It's like actually unclear beyond product what we did to cause that to happen. I can say that about a month in, or maybe 2 or 3 weeks in, I'll have to go back and look, we did launch the Autopost feature on Posterous. So before it really was email this, and it just goes on your own site. That's your site.posterous.com. But if you wanted to share it, you had to send that link to somebody. And at some point, we actually realized, hey, well, this works really well with Twitter and Facebook, and distribution is the most important thing possible. So let's make it easy for you to post to Twitter and Facebook. And a lot of we didn't really go into it knowing that was going to be really important. We just said there's a laundry list of things that we wanted to do, and we launched with the most minimal possible thing. So we didn't even support video at the time. I think it was literally email, post to Posterous, and get a blog, and it was text and images, and I don't think there were even image galleries. And from there, we would get emails from our users every single day saying, hey, I really need this, I really need that, I have Twitter, I really want to post to that. Keep in mind this was mid '08, and so Twitter still was this like super techie, like Silicon Valley, like South by Southwest kind of thing. And we said, hey, yeah, let's do it. And it turns out, and even to this day, like, you know, that may have been the thing that really kind of tipped us, because what is distribution? It's getting into the hands of other users, like people who've never heard about you. And the best way to do it is for one of their friends or one of their people they trust on Twitter or Facebook or, you know, any of the existing social networks. You know, seeing them use it and saying to yourself, hey, there's something there, let's give it a shot. And so that's, I think, the early part of, you know, what this to. Yep. Yeah, so I don't know how much that helps, actually. That's right. I think so. I mean, Autopost happened pretty quickly after we had launched. So it's really like the thing is, it's not a repeatable thing. So it's really hard for me to say whether it was just the, you know, momentum that TechCrunch gave us, or was it the features that we created, or specifically Autopost, or being able to leverage Facebook and Twitter. Absolutely. It really wasn't, actually. Yeah, I mean, I think we had about 20 of our, you know, closest friends and family use it, and part of it was we had such a minimal product at the time that, um, yeah, it really, you know, I think from after about user 100, we started getting people that we didn't know on there, and that was always a really cool thing. Right. Exactly. Exactly. Maybe, maybe it's tough to say. Absolutely. I really think it. I really do think actually it just comes down to a super simple value proposition where every person who uses the internet has email, and they use it every day, and it's the way they communicate. And you know, there are lots of ways to post photos online. In fact, you know, there are new ways every single day. Um, but in order, you know, the ability to just reach someone using things that they already use, I think really spoke to people. And it's actually really funny because the audience for this, you know, interview, you know, we're all really technical people typically, or very internet focused, or it's like almost incomprehensible to us that something so simple could be something that speaks to a lot of people. I think, like, to me, that one of the moments where uh, we only had an inkling of what we had, was when we first moved to Boston and we had just incorporated, you know, C Corp, Delaware, all of that, and we were getting our bank account. And I think we were in Bank of America out in Cambridge, next to Harvard Square, and we were talking to the teller who was opening our business account. And he was like, you know, two scruffy-looking guys, you know, just in Harvard Square. I mean, we still look like students even. And he was like, well, this is pretty strange. Usually, you know, people don't come in here and open business bank accounts that often who look like you guys. Like, what do you guys do? And we told them, you know, all you do is email, and you get back a place where it's your own site that we take care of everything. We make your image galleries. You can make it private or public. It's, you know, even then he said, well, I'm going to go home and tell my wife about it, and she, you know, would love it. She would use it. And that, I think that was one moment where stepping outside of the echo chamber and stepping outside of Silicon Valley, we kind of said, well, we think there's something huge here. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's not really necessarily simplicity. I mean, actually, in order to make it simple for the end user, it ends up being a massively complex thing on the back end. And I'm sure, you know, from what you've seen, like it's very much true because it's easy to get a prototype level piece of software, but it's hard to eke out every last edge case. And you kind of see this in a lot of software by larger companies where it does so much, but the second you try and do something slightly off of that track, it totally breaks. And so I think with Posters, we were the first ones to say email is the way to post, and we're going to think this through all the way. It's not going to be just one piece of media or one media type. We're going to support the whole hog the way people want to use it. And we're not going to force you to use a secret email address that's like XZY992 something or other that you're not going to remember and you're not going to use. We wanted to use post@posterous.com. So we were the first ones to actually use a single email address that wasn't an obscure one. And since then, I think FriendFeed and a bunch of other guys now do it. I think Facebook might do it now. But we were the first. Yeah, I mean, we just tried to do these, right now, these days it's totally codified in Steve Blank's books, and, everyone's kind of been reading and talking about it now. And back then, we didn't know what that was, but we did hear what Paul Graham was just drilling into our heads the whole time, which was, make the simplest quanta of functionality possible and get it in the hands of users. I think that's something that served us incredibly well. Like I said, our first version was as simple as send an email and we will receive it and we'll host the images and that's it. And we didn't support video, we didn't have tagging, we didn't have search, we didn't have themes. I mean, we didn't have themes for at least a year, I think at least a year. And it was easily the most frequently asked for feature, but we just kept kind of focusing on the next biggest thing. And theming wasn't it until it was. And so that's why it took a year for us to actually get that out, because there were so many other things that were far more important. And I think ultimately, for anyone who's doing a startup or a product of any sort, being able to stack rank and prioritize and say, this is what's most important at any given moment. Like, this is what is on fire at the moment. Let's extinguish that fire. Like being able to prioritize that and execute on that continually every day, that will help you massively, because it's helped us absolutely. We didn't have all of these other things, but we had this simple flow, and then we just kept building every single day. Yeah, we had to do that though. So I mean, I think that was our minimal set. That was the quanta. It was like, and actually, like early on when Sachin and I were doing this, at a certain point, like, Sachin was absolutely adamant that we shipped with no signups, no setup. And I was like, oh, what about setup? There's a certain level of this is the way we always do it. But this is probably a theme that you'll end up finding also. You have to be there has to be some element of contrarian nature in whatever you're doing, because you can't do what everyone else is doing. And so for us, I had to wrap my brain around like, well, no sign up, no setup. Like, what does that really mean? It means I actually don't even want to put a register button on the homepage, because I want people to use it the way they should use it. their first time. Like if we put a register button, even today, there's no register button on the Phosphorus homepage. We want you to email. And once you've used it once, then you'll get it, and that's how you'll continue to use it. And I had to totally rack my brain around that. And I was like, "Are you sure? No register? Like, no captcha? Even like it kills me when you go to a site and the register form is like 10,000 things, and then there's like a reCAPTCHA. Part of it is solve the problems when you have the problems, and so if you're starting off, like, don't worry about spam. Like, you'll be able to deal with it. And part of that was definitely Chin, and then part of that was definitely Paul Graham, where I don't know if this is talked about very much, but when you launch as a YC company, PG kind of has, he forces you to say, hey, like, this is ready to go, or he forces you to go through him and kind of get a path checked off. And actually, that helped massively. I mean, even today, our register form is only, I think, either 2 or 3 text fields. And before it was like 5 or 6. Like we asked for your nickname and or to choose a nickname or / username, and we wanted it to be unique, and we wanted you to give us your first name and last name and all these different things. And PG just said, get rid of that and get rid of that and get rid of that. It should be this and this. And he was right. He was absolutely right. I guess so. Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of how it worked for us. But in terms of just general PR advice, you should definitely be careful about just emailing editor at anything really. I think who was it? Jason from 37 Signals recently had a really amazing blog post about how if you ever find yourself emailing en masse, you should just stop and take a second and question, like, should you really be doing that? Because it's you have to think about who's on the other end of that email. I mean, we all get hundreds or if not thousands of emails every week, and a lot of it's spam, and the spam always gets deleted. But when someone does the research to find out who you are and what you're about, and tailors it to what you want, then you're going to get a response. And bloggers are totally not different from that. And so whether it's TechCrunch or Mashable or mainstream press or anyone really, you really need to kind of seek out specific people and kind of try and cultivate a direct relationship with them. And so at TechCrunch, maybe you don't go to Michael directly. You want to kind of go through Lena or Jason or Eric, or just get to know who might be the most interested person for your particular thing, and then try and engage them personally. The other thing that no one will ever, I don't know, the other kind of like mini secret is that really you should give people exclusives. Bloggers they have their own goals as well, and exclusives are it. They want to be the ones who break the hottest thing. And it's one thing to spam a bunch of people and get no coverage at all. It's much better to try and get a direct personal relationship with someone who really understands what you're doing, who maybe has reviewed a couple of other startups that are in that space, and explain to them specifically, well, you wrote about this, you wrote about that. We're better than all of these because of X, Y, and Z. Like, write the story for them even. Yeah, and let's see. Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately it's tailor your story and give them an exclusive, because they want to break what's newsworthy. And when you build something new, it absolutely is. Oh man, I'll have to think about that one. Yeah, totally. You're gonna edit this, right? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I guess this kind of goes back to I've been working with the web since I think like 98 or 97. I think I was like 14 or 15 in college, or sorry, in high school, and I was working with learning HTML and doing all of that. This Web 1.0 worked for this consulting firm called Adjacency, and they ended up doing the first Apple e-store. So they were really early on e-commerce, and I was learning CGI and Perl and all those ancient technologies. But it literally was that's how you did it back then. And they ended up all getting filthy rich, which is awesome. Andrew Sather, the CEO of that company, I asked him, well, I'm in high school. I don't really know what I want to do, but this, computers are really cool, and I want to do what you're doing someday. How do I do it? And ultimately, the advice he gave me was, don't be afraid to do it. You need to learn to do everything. And so, growing up in Silicon Valley and growing up and knowing these guys, like, I always knew we wanted to do this. And so part of it is I just tried to seek out as many different experiences as I could. So I went to CS at Stanford to really learn how to code, from an academic standpoint. But all the while, I was also coding as much as I could for side projects and just for fun. But coding isn't it. Like, there's so much more to that. I started kind of reading about design and basically playing with Photoshop. I loved web design, so I tried to learn and do as much of it as possible. And when I went to Microsoft, I started studying Edward Tufte, like his works on information design. I basically started trying to become more of a designer and kind of understanding how real users operate. And then I guess the flip side of that is, right after college, I went up to Microsoft and was a program manager, and I kind of saw like a lot of amazing process on how to build software and how to do things, but I also learned how not to do things. And part of the frustration of working in a big company is seeing things that are totally obvious that you need to be able to do and not being able to make them happen because you're 12 levels away from Bill Gates or something like that. I mean, I can't speak for Sachin, but you definitely learn a lot in big corporate software environments, and we learn to make mistakes on other people's dimes. So we learned a lot there, absolutely. After that, I actually went to work for a friend's startup called Palantir Technologies, and we got to build a team out from basically me and another guy. We got to build a V1 product. And build that team out to 20, and that was absolutely amazing. But all throughout that, I just knew, working for a startup is still different from being able to make the day-to-day decisions, end-of-day decisions. Like, I think it's really important to basically have final cut, and the only way you're truly going to get final cut is if, as to be an entrepreneur. Yeah, but yeah, yeah. But I mean, there's something. The thing is, like, I kind of wish we started Posturous like 5 years ago. I think that's easy to say. And part of the process of starting. Oh, go ahead. It really wasn't. But probably 8 years ago, when I was graduating from college, I thought the web was dead, and I was really, really wrong. I mean, I think a lot of people thought the web was dead, and I think that underscores how wrong the masses truly are, and how wrong prevailing wisdom can be. Yeah, Honestly, we didn't. I to the contrary, like it's unclear to me. Um, yeah, it's unclear to me how important it was versus like other people coming out with it, because email was around quite a while. I think there's that meme that went around on Hacker News about $10 idea plus $1 million execution. You multiply those two together, right? And I think right. That's true. Um, I guess I'm not quite sure how to answer the question. um, hmm, Absolutely. Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's a ton of it is actually, um, I mean, at this point, a lot of it is SEO, and beyond that, it still is incredible amount of referral from Facebook and Twitter and the Twitter clients. So that's a really important aspect of our ecosystem. Yeah, we did. And one thing that we do that our users love is automatic blog ping. And so one thing that you'll notice with existing blog platforms is that blogging actually is an incredibly complex and like to us absolutely totally over complex thing that was built by really amazing pioneers of the web. Like we didn't even know what blogging was when the web first came on. But along the way, there are all these concepts around, pingbacks and trackbacks. Like it's, normal people don't know what that is. And when we started Posters, we really wanted to reboot this concept of publishing online. We don't even like the term blog that much because there's so much baggage associated with it. So just going back to the SEO point, like we automatically ping Google and Yahoo and all the people who have blog ping services. But if you look at WordPress and a lot of other off-the-shelf kind of open source stuff, or even a lot of our competitors, like they just don't do it. You have to configure it. You need a plugin. We don't want normal people to have to worry about that, and so we just do it transparently, and that's been really, really valuable. Absolutely. Yeah, we probably could do it better, but at the same time, we don't. But what's funny is we're actually, you hear a lot about metrics-oriented approach. Like that's something that we're absolutely learning now. Up until this point, you know, we did pretty minimal A/B testing. Actually, we've been really focused on just getting product out because uh, going back to our process, there really is like this laundry list of 10,000 things that we want to do, and so being able to violently execute on that list of features, up until this point has been way more valuable than finding the local maximum of, various specific features. And that's not going to be true forever. Yeah, I mean, right. But for us, we really knew, and even today, I can show you that spreadsheet. It's like 20 different things that are my hair is on fire. It's invisibly burning right now. Like my scalp is like we really need to get these things out. But that being said, A/B testing and a really metrics-oriented approach, like we see that being super, super valuable. And I think the mix there is if you're doing something truly new, and or just building something from scratch that you need to catch up. Well, it's better to catch up than try and optimize. The flip side of that is if you're doing something that might be more, I don't know, any of the lead gen stuff, or I don't know, like there's so many really competitive markets out there where like it's really important to get your conversion to the extreme because there's so much competition. Online retailing, all of those things, like you can get crazy ROI on the amount of time you spend on A/B testing, and we're starting to add all of that. But when your hair is on fire, you need to run for a bucket of water. I mean, I think part of it is, starting a startup is an incredibly solitary experience. And joining Y Combinator in a lot of ways is like joining this, for the lack of, I mean, it's like a brotherhood or something, like a fraternity almost, a fraternity that allows women in. It's indeed. Yeah, exactly, right. Part of it is the social pressure of needing to launch every single week something new, not just to the world, or maybe just to your own peer group, a group of 40 other people who are also trying to do the same thing. Like that, that process was massively valuable because it's a solitary thing. It's kind of like us and our idea, and we're on this tiny little boat in the sea, and the waves are crashing and things are crazy, but at least it's nice to have other people in rafts right next to you because you can kind of band together because you're solving all the same problems around distribution and design and figuring out what your product should do. We found that super valuable. I mean, that aside from the great product advice that Paul Graham and Jessica and all the YC partners give you, the network was super valuable. I mean, SEO, for instance, Tony Wright. I mean, part of it is not just the people who are in your YC batch. It was also, I think about 100 alums back when we joined, and now it's like 200 or 300 different alums, and they're doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Like, you can basically tap that network and virtually anything you possibly need or want to do when it comes to web startups, especially. They probably know something about it and can either put you in touch with the right people or give you the inside scoop, and that's invaluable. I mean, to us, it has been. The canonical kind of argument, like, is YC worth it? Is like, average YC gives you 6%. If your company valuation goes up by 6%, then that's your break-even point. And I can't even put a number in terms of what the multiplier was on YC for us. Maybe 10x, maybe 100x. Who knows? Getting traction. This is actually a really cool kind of tip that we got from Wufu, another YC alumnus, and they're if you guys haven't heard of it, Wufu.com, WUFOO.com, really simple online form creation. They're aside from being brilliant masters of CSS and web design, they're also kind of like this unbelievable engine of customer support. And that makes a really big difference when you're starting out. I mean, I think basically what they do is, I think there's 6 or 7 guys last time I talked to them, and one person is totally devoted to customer support every day, and they try and get an email back if you email them within something like 10 minutes. It's unbelievable. I've never heard of anything like it. We like it so much, and that we've adopted it for ourselves, but we try and keep it to like 6 hours or something. 10 minutes is really hard to keep up with. But the result is amazing because you will actually create like personal relationships with your users, and that's super important because they could use any site. Why should they use yours? Well, they should use yours because you care about the user way more than everyone else. If you email Tumblr today, actually I've never done it, but I think they actually do have people reading it now. But I suspect that we'll give you a way more personal service than they ever will. If you're talking about Blogger over at Google, like great product, great team, like they just can't do it. Like they have insane scale. Like they just can't do it. I think that kind of underscores one of the big points for startups that are starting out just from scratch. Is that like so many of us try to be really big. We try to look like we're this gigantic company, and we have an about us page, and it's corporate info and investors, and it's like kind of ridiculous. Actually, you really shouldn't do that. When you're small, you should be small. You should be, on our about page, it was like my photo and Sachin's photo, and it's like our bio, and hey, click to my blog, and you can email us personally. And we promise you, when you email help@posterous.com, we're going to get back to you. Things like that really matter. And so when you're small, be small, and don't try and be corporate, and don't try and be, Google. Don't try and out Google. It's insane. If you can have a personal relationship with your customer every time they come in, then do it. Part of the philosophy behind that is back at Stanford, I did some research with a professor his name was Cliff Nass, and I think he's department chair of communications there. And his big breakthrough was that people treat computers like people, which is, at the face of it, very obvious, but also very interesting, because when we create software, most of us don't really think of it as a conversation, or most of us don't really think of us as reaching out and talking to someone through the web. But that's what we're doing. It's like we're writing a personal email to people, or only it's on a website. So that's something to really keep in mind, like especially on like tone and voice, and everything. Like copy is design, marketing copy or website copy or instructions, all of that. Like all of that really should come from the heart, and it should come from a normal person talking to someone, and not like a robot or a machine or a corporation. And so yeah, when you're small, be small, and be very, if you're extreme on customer support, you'll know exactly what's broken, and you will know what the things that, what things are on fire instantly. But the flip side is you'll have extreme champions who will love you, because, who doesn't, when you can have a personal relationship with someone on the other end? Like, I don't need a phone tree. I can talk to a real person, and they care about whether my problem is solved or not. I mean, ultimately, a lot of it, we've learned so much from YC, just because there is actually this kind of product-oriented, product-centric, view of the world that PG puts out, and it's in his essays, and whenever he talks to us, like, it continues to be so present. And the simplest possible thing, the simplest way to put it really is make things people want. And when we get to YC offices, the first day we get a T-shirt, and it's a gray T-shirt, and it says, make things people want. And if you get an exit, or if you, have some sort of meaningful exit, whether it's selling or whatnot, like you get a black T-shirt that says, I made things people want. And I think that just has really been a guiding force for us. I mean, our story has been really kind of atypical, because, the idea all along has been email is powerful, and it's a really broken feature that no one's really thought about. So let's do that. And Sachin, my co-founder Sachin, came up with it. Distinctly remember we kept in touch. Like he went to Apple, and I think I was at, at Palantir at the time, and we were talking about, hey, what's hot these days, and Sachin had been working on just like fleshing out the idea, and like he'd been thinking about it a lot, and he just told me the idea, and on the face of it, I was like, wow, that is so simple. But we've just from there, that's what we stuck with. So we looked at other applications for email, but this was the most direct possible one. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think ultimately it's you have to be really contrarian. You really do have to kind of find something that almost does feel like a trick, and that on the face of it, people will look at you and say, like, "Are you serious? That was it." I mean, I think most of my friends, but a lot of them were just like, "Wow, okay, you're going to do that? Like, good luck." They didn't see the product that came out until we released it, but on the face of it, it was a terrible idea in some ways. I mean, I think a lot of our friends, even in YC, were like, "Wow, what?" But there's like gold in things that like people think are terrible, I guess. I mean, we always believed it from the beginning, and we're thrilled that it's turning out to be absolutely true.